Has CDProjekt Red finally fixed Cyberpunk 2077 enough for you to confidently play the game in 2022? In this video, I'll be reviewing the sci-fi RPG everyone loves to dunk on and letting you know whether it's worth your time. This review will be spoiler-free, and I'll focus on breaking down the core gameplay, world design, and quality of the quests. So buckle up, grab some iced coffee, and let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. What's up everyone? Big Dan here. I make videos about RPGs and gaming commentary. So if you like video games and want to see more videos like this, then hit that subscribe button right now. Without further ado, let's dive right in. I first played Cyberpunk 2077 on release day back in December 2020. I remember being so excited to finally get my hands on this game after literally years of waiting, rewatching the 2018 gameplay reveal trailer and Keanu Reeves' cringy E3 presentation.
You're breathtaking!
And well, we all know what happened at this point.
I assure you that we'll do our best to regain your trust.
The game was extremely buggy, and on consoles it was basically unplayable. After the Disastrous Launch, CDPR officially changed the studio name to CDTR or CDProjekt Red. Look, when they said there'd be flying cars in the future, this isn't exactly what we had in mind. Now, I played Cyberpunk 2077 on PC, and I was one of the 17 people out there who only experienced a handful of glitches or bugs, so I actually had a lot of fun playing this game. But after sinking over 170 hours into Cyberpunk, I put the game down and haven't touched it since about February 2021. Since then, the game has been patched numerous times, and many of the most egregious bugs have been fixed. So I decided to hop back in and see how much this game has changed since its disastrous launch. This review will dive into several aspects of Cyberpunk 2077, including improvements and changes, character creation and core gameplay, the world design of Night City, and finally, quest design and story choices, spoiler-free of course. So let's start off with what's been added and improved upon since launch. For this review, I played the game on the latest patch, 1.52, which released back in March. Let's briefly discuss the most noticeable changes I found when diving back into the game. For starters, the driving has vastly improved. The roads no longer feel like they've been covered with Crisco, and you can actually stop, slow down, and make effective turns in a reasonable amount of time. This is difficult to demonstrate on screen since it's more of a game feel kind of thing, but trust me, the cars in this game used to be much more difficult to control as you weaved through dense city traffic. Trying to navigate through the streets of Night City without plowing into a crowd full of people was like Todd Howard trying to get through a gameplay reveal without lying. In other words, it was damn near impossible.
It just works.
I still wouldn't say Cyberpunk has great driving by any stretch of the imagination. It still falls behind games like GTA 5, but there is a noticeable improvement which is welcome. CDProjekt Red also made changes to the game's artificial intelligence, including the wanted system, traffic, and crowd AI. So how are these improvements? Well, it's a mixed bag. There are definitely some upgrades, but the bar was so low to begin with that this isn't saying much. So let's start with the wanted system. This was horribly implemented in the initial release. Whenever you committed a crime, police would immediately spawn right next to you and open fire. This was super annoying, and the only consolation is that the police were extremely lazy. To get rid of a bounty, all you needed to do was go around a bend, and the bounty would immediately disappear once they lost line of sight. Night City truly had the world's shittiest police. After the patch, police spawn in your general vicinity instead of right next to you. So it actually seems more like they are responding to a nearby crime rather than materializing out of thin air. The bounty also stays active for longer, so now you actually have to evade the police in order to clear a wanted rating. The cops will also work a little harder to find you than they did in the past. The system is by no means great, but it's no longer the complete and utter joke of a wanted system that it was on launch day. Crowd AI has also improved somewhat. For instance, if you fire your weapon in public now, NPCs will run away instead of just cowering and crouching in place. Some NPCs may even pull out a gun and attack you like a typical concealed carry wannabe hero. These are all great improvements, but again, the bar was so ridiculously low to begin with that this isn't saying much. Traffic AI has been revamped as well. In the past, if you blocked traffic on the street, cars would just sit there, waiting patiently in line. Their AI pathing was so limited that a slight disruption would completely break their feeble little minds. Now most cars will at least attempt to drive around you, although they'll sometimes still just sit there. It seems to be a mixed bag. CDPR also added in some new weapons, outfits, and a few additional apartments that V can purchase. Finally, they added an option to the mirror in V's apartment so that you can change your character's appearance. Initially, this was only available during character creation. These changes are all good, but what about the bugs and glitches? CDPR seems to have fixed the most problematic bugs and improved the performance of the game overall. Cyberpunk has been relisted on the PlayStation Store, and the store page no longer has the buy at your own risk disclaimer. That being said, it's still far from perfect. In my latest playthrough, I experienced some weird audio glitches, which is strange because I never had these problems during the initial release.
And none too wise. You know, whenever I see someone like you, I'm oh so grateful not to be on that side of the table.
I was able to overcome this by reloading a save, and I'm still not entirely sure what happened here. At the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal, but just know that this game is still not perfectly polished, and it probably never will be. At this point, CDProjekt Red is shifting most of its staff to working on the next Witcher game, and by the time the Cyberpunk expansion releases in 2023, there will only be a skeleton crew of developers still working on the game. But now that we've beaten the dead horse of Cyberpunk 2077's performance and bug situation, let's take a look at character creation and core gameplay. Expressing yourself through your character is one of the most exciting aspects of playing RPGs, so it's extremely important to have lots of choices to create the character you want. Cyberpunk 2077 provides you with an impressive array of options to customize your character, not just in terms of aesthetics, but playstyle as well. The character builder is simple and intuitive to use, and there are a plethora of hairstyles, skin tones, tattoos, piercings, and other adornments to create a futuristic-looking badass. The vast majority of the game is in first person, so you won't be seeing V much after the character creation screen. But let's be honest, it's still really fun to customize your character even if you can't see them. I mean, Beethoven's hearing loss didn't stop the dude from making music after all. In terms of gameplay, the character build variety is also impressive. Let's take a look at how the character building and skill system work in this game. There are 5 different overarching attributes that you can invest in: body, reflexes, technical ability, intelligence, and cool. In a nutshell, body is all about your melee damage, HP regeneration, and resistances. Reflexes make you go rat-a-tat-tat with all your guns. Technical ability improves crafting and engineering. Intelligence allows you to 5-head some really cool hacking mechanics, and cool improves your overall badassery and ability to secure the bag. Nah, I'm just kidding. Cool dictates your stealth mechanics. You only gain 1 attribute point every 3 levels, and you won't be able to max out everything in one playthrough, so invest wisely. You also cannot respec your attributes without mods, but you can reset perks if you want to mix things up mid-playthrough. Each attribute also has a few different subcategories of perks and skills that you can unlock and level up through use. Some perks provide only small boosts to stats, while others give you huge gameplay-changing benefits. For instance, High Noon provides a measly 2% increase to your crit chance at rank 1. Meanwhile, Unbroken Spirit restores 25% of your health and stamina anytime you perform a successful counterattack. And Big Sleep allows you to disable all security cameras for 3 minutes, greatly improving stealth. Clearly, all perks are not created equal. How you build your character and invest your stats will greatly impact your playstyle. So let's talk about the variety of ways you can approach dangerous situations in Cyberpunk 2077. The combat is pretty much a combination of Deus Ex and Far Cry. You've got your typical guns blazing approach and your stealth approach, with a mixture of hacking options that can support either playstyle. And well, you'll see what I mean.
Then take another look.
Another extremist.
They spotted us!
Jesus Christ!
Gotta reload!
To me, the coolest part of this game were the quick hacks, which allow you to hack into an enemy's cyberware to apply debuffs or deal direct damage. For instance, you can reboot optics to temporarily blind enemies, creating opportunities to sneak past or get an early advantage in combat. Contagion can poison your opponents, demobilizing them and simultaneously dealing damage. There's even a hack that will cause opponents to shoot themselves, though this particular item is a rare loot drop, and I didn't end up getting it during my playthrough. If you invest heavily into intelligence and related perks, you can easily wipe out an entire enemy base from the shadows without firing a single shot, like some kind of ninja tech assassin. It's incredibly satisfying. Street cred, or clout as I like to call it, is another leveling system in Cyberpunk 2077. Street cred basically allows you to unlock new missions and vehicles from fixers, the NPCs who provide a lot of the side quests in the game. Want to ball out in a Bugatti? You better raise that cred, son. There's not really much more to say about this system, it's just sort of a level gating thing for fixers. Cyberware is another major gameplay system in Cyberpunk 2077. These are a series of body modifications you can install to gain new abilities like double jump, mantis blades, and grenade launcher arms. There are also mods which provide passive benefits as well. You can buy these mods from various Ripperdoc merchants throughout the game, like Victor Vector. I was focused on a hacking intelligence build, so I mainly invested in mods that boosted my memory and RAM. I still only feel like I've scratched the surface of cyberware modifications, so in future playthroughs, I plan to invest more heavily into this system. Speaking of investing, let's talk about Bitcoin. Nah, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about the loot, inventory, and crafting systems in Cyberpunk 2077. This is where things fall off a bit for me. For starters, there is way too much random loot in this game. You'll constantly be picking up random junk, consumables, crappy weapons, and more in every single room in the game. This problem was also prevalent in The Witcher 3, and it seems CDPR didn't learn their lesson. Fumbling around with inventory menus to sort through tons of pointless loot is simply not fun. Nor is scrounging for items from dozens of enemies, containers, and chests every single place you go. But Dan, why don't you just skip all the loot then? Because I have a problem. If I see a chest in an RPG, I gotta loot it. I can't contain myself. Cyberpunk also has an annoying leveling system when it comes to weapons and armor, because CDPR decided to go the looter-shooter route with this game. So for instance, you'll find identical D5 Copperhead assault rifles that all deal different amounts of damage for some reason, because the weapons have an arbitrary level attached to them. This creates a few problems. One, you'll constantly be searching for quote-unquote new weapons, because as you level up, your current gear won't scale. Even legendary, story-significant weapons will get outpaced by basic equipment depending on when you acquired that weapon. Now, you can upgrade your current gear using crafting components, but it's so ridiculously expensive and higher level components are so rare that you won't be able to keep pace unless you are already near max level. It's the same thing for armor, which also means in order to get the best armor stats, you'll most likely be dressed like an absolute clown, because Cyberpunk 2077 also doesn't have transmog. Transmog is the process of transforming your gear to cosmetically look like another piece of armor. That way you can sport the best drip without sacrificing your stats. Come on, Cyberpunk! If Assassin's Creed Odyssey could do this in 2018, then why can't you? CDPR has teased a potential update that will add transmog to the game in the future, but at the time of recording this, all we have are cryptic tweets on the topic. But I've had enough of this rant about loot, so let's talk about the world design of Night City. Night City is one of the most aesthetically pleasing game worlds I've ever set eyes on, but much like a stereotypical vapid Instagram model, this beauty is only skin deep, and when you begin to dig below the surface, the illusion of Night City starts to crumble. Night City looks like a colorful yet dystopian megapolis, but there is very little in the environment you can actually interact with. Most of the buildings have locked doors that cannot be entered, storefronts have no entrance or customers, people mill about doing absolutely nothing. Like many things with this game, the interactivity of Night City just didn't live up to CDPR's aspirations or hype, and while the world is very pretty, graphics and aesthetics only go so far. Night City is still fun to explore for the most part, especially on a first playthrough, but the amount of areas that are inaccessible is disappointing nonetheless. The world just doesn't feel fully fleshed out. Pacifica is practically empty, the train stations are unfinished, and there is no functioning metro that you can even ride in the game. When I started playing Cyberpunk, I found myself driving to every quest location because I was still awestruck by the visuals. But eventually you realize there isn't much to find in this game world, and so I started just fast traveling everywhere like I do in pretty much every open world game at this point. There was no compelling reason to explore the environment. I hope that if CDPR makes a sequel to this game, then they'll take some time to flesh out the world design next time around. Completing interesting and fun quests is one of the main reasons I play RPGs, and Cyberpunk 2077 is really satisfying in this department. Cyberpunk has some of the wildest and most memorable quests I've ever played in a video game. Now, I'm going to be intentionally vague here to avoid spoilers, but the quests involving Lizzie Wizzy, the mayor of Night City, and the convict turned born-again Christian are ones that I will remember for years to come. The story writing in this game is top tier, on par with what we've come to expect from CDProjekt Red. It's unfortunate that the game was released in such an unpolished state, because many people will never experience the best this game has to offer. From the wacky and cool characters, to the scintillating plot lines and stunning locations, these are the things which make Cyberpunk 2077 memorable and fun to play. My only real point of criticism in this department is the lack of significant story choices and consequences for the majority of the game. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a handful of quests which provide you with decisions that impact the outcome, but it's nowhere close to what you would find in games like The Witcher 3 or the original Mass Effect trilogy. Aside from a handful of really significant decision points, Cyberpunk 2077 is much more linear in terms of narrative and player choice. Now, this isn't a bad thing in and of itself. There are plenty of story-driven open-world games without many player choices that are still really phenomenal. Games like Ghost of Tsushima, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Horizon Forbidden West come to mind. But Cyberpunk 2077 was marketed as a choice-driven RPG. Hell, it was made by the same people who created The Witcher 3. So naturally, it's a bit disappointing that they didn't live up to this vision. Is Cyberpunk 2077 worth playing today? Yes, but it's important to temper your expectations before diving in. If you're expecting Cyberpunk 2077 to live up to the hype and be God's gift to gaming, then you're going to be disappointed. If you're expecting a choice-driven RPG with lots of branching paths and reactive storytelling like The Witcher 3, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you're looking for a fun, open-world science fiction game with a moderately deep character-building system, a variety of gameplay options, and a satisfying story, then Cyberpunk 2077 will be right up your alley. If you're interested in this game and have nothing else you'd rather play at the moment, then now is as good a time as any to jump into Cyberpunk 2077. The expansion is still more than 6 months away, so I don't really see a point in waiting that long if you want to play the game. Maybe wait for a sale if you don't want to pay full price for this title, but that's really up to you. So there you have it. Cyberpunk 2077, despite all of its flaws, is still worth playing in 2022. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG videos and gaming commentary. If you want to support this channel even further, consider becoming a member. For $5, you can get your name in the credits of these videos, as well as access to custom chat emojis and other fun perks. I'll also be doing a members-only live stream on Friday, July 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so if you want to be a member, hit that join button right now. Big shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan. I should go.